I do not know what making a hashtag does, but hashtag still to Arlington is alive and well. I don't want to jump out on a limb too far and say this is a season defining win. I don't even want to say this is a team defining win, but is it fair to say this is possibly a defining win?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. Obviously, we're doing a late night edition of a live show as Oklahoma State punches its ticket over BYU to get to the Big 12 title game in Arlington. It is kind of funny how weeks and weeks and weeks ago, whenever we talked about the Big 12 title game, I'll admit it, right? Yes, I did jump out on a limb and say we'd win 9 or 10 games, but I also had a K-State in Texas in this game. But here we are. And the beauty of it all is it was kind of ugly how we got here. I mean, none of this was necessarily pretty, but it doesn't have to be either, because now we get really a Texas squad that everybody's going to think we have no chance of beating, which I think is definitely the benefit to us. It's not going to benefit Texas that they're going to be favored by 17, 20 some odd points, right? It's amazing that we've even got to this point. This is the biggest turnaround in season I've ever seen. We've talked to a lot of former Cowboys and Cowboys that are in the locker room that can attest to the fact that this is a very, very rare thing that we've been able to put together. So I think this game, although it might not be the season-defining, team-defining, when I say it might be redefining, it's because all of us as Oklahoma State fans, we all felt the same thing in the first half. And that the jokes all week were, wouldn't it be the most cardiac Cowboy Oklahoma State thing to do to lose to BYU right at the doorstep of playing for another Big 12 title? And let's face it, as Oklahoma State fans, this is precisely what we've gone up against for years and years and years. We get so close, but we can't ever seem to get over that next hump. This was part of that next hump. Because getting down by that much, I don't think is the bigger story. The bigger story is the fact that the leadership had to step up in the way that it did. And again, as we discussed previously in the week, we had 28 seniors walk. Yeah, but like 18 of these dudes can come back. At least 15, 16 of them. And from what I've been able to gather, a large portion of them will. This is slightly redefining because the traditional, typical Oklahoma State would have found a way to lose this game. And we did. We gave ourselves every opportunity to screw this one away. So to see that rebound was absolutely phenomenal. To put us in this position, it's a remarkable job from the locker room, from the coaching staff. Like, Dunn talked about a little bit post-game, they had to identify what we were going to be best at. And what we knew, a large portion of the fan base was very well aware that the power running game that we were able to see clips of in the offseason was probably going to be something that was massively beneficial for Oklahoma State moving forward. We just had to find the right pieces, because we thought we had the offensive line kind of narrowed down, and we didn't do a lot of mix and match, but it took a lot of time. It took a lot of consistency of them all playing together before they could kind of all figure it out. Yeah, I don't want to get. Oh yeah, yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's a wild ride. So I really feel like this is a game that we needed to win to kind of set the example of what we're going to be moving forward. because the new Big 12 should have Oklahoma State at the top. We've had several conversations about there's nobody in the conference not named OU that has more wins over the last 12, 15 years in the conference. So when OU is gone, Oklahoma State should rightfully take its spot as right at the top. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Utah. These are teams that should finish in the top 4 of the Big 12 every single year, year in, year out, no matter what. Now, you're always going to have teams like BYU, like Texas Tech, like even I think UCF eventually is going to be a pretty good team. But we've already seen UCF is a good example. It's not a talent differential that you're seeing a lot of. It's a coaching, right? And we found a way to coach losses in these situations. So again, it may not be season defining. It may even actually be team defining. But at the end of the day, it might be redefining. Is this the win that we needed for Mike Gundy and everybody else to take that next step of realization of we should be the top dog? And if you're going to be the top dog, you got to win these games. Thank goodness that we have the camaraderie that we do. Thank goodness we have the leadership that we do. And this is a special group, right? The only reason that I was talking earlier in the season about us potentially winning 9 to 10 games is because the talent was ridiculous. And again, in the spring, you don't really have anything to compare it to because it's your own dudes going up against your own dudes. But you could see that there was a different intensity. You could see that there was a different team speed. You could also see that we were prone to a lot of mistakes, a lot of turnovers. If we give Texas, there's no way we come back if we get down this much to Texas. But see, that's the beauty of being in this position, man. Texas is going to be favored to win by 17, 20, 22, some odd points, probably. It'll be at least 14 plus. The whole world's going to be talking about, what could potentially factor into Texas getting into the Final Four. And realistically, they're likely, if they were to beat us in the Big 12 title game, there's a large portion of voters and media and ESPN types that are going to want to see Texas in that Final Four type of position. So it sets up to do a lot of things positive for Oklahoma State, right? We do have to just take a moment to appreciate this team because what they've been able to accomplish is extremely rare, extremely, extremely rare. We'll get to see a lot of them again, thankfully. Guys, again, we've got a good class coming in, and we return like 80% of this roster. The roster that we just watched, we'll get at least 75 to 80% back. I think with a lot of these offensive line, we could potentially have every single offensive lineman back. Ollie's not going anywhere. The wide receiver core, we get Dejon Stribling back. Obviously, Talon Shetron. Hopefully he can, be a little bit healthier. Jaden Bray, I do think, is benefiting right now by seeing what Leon Johnson is able to do because Jaden Bray's put in the time at Oklahoma State University. Jaden Bray is a very good wide receiver, but you can just tell there's a difference when he's on the field between him and Leon Johnson, right? So I think it's a good moment for him, but likely you're going to have him back as well. There's a lot of clips out there of Jalen Pope and Cameron Hurd, two young wide receivers that have been very, very productive and instrumental in some of the scout team stuff, right? Who gets the extra jersey to highlight the best receiver on the other team. Thankfully, we've got some freshmen and some sophomores at the wide receiver position that are able to do that. I think obviously the decision that Alan Bowman's going to make is the biggest because, again, he applied for the 7th year. From everything I've gathered, he is likely to get that 7th year. I personally, I think we've got more than enough to roll into a new season. But again, I don't know. I don't know. We just need to take time to appreciate the guys that will be gone, like Leon Johnson III. It's funny, very, very early on in the first half, when absolutely nothing was going right. It's like I was having a conversation with somebody, and the conversation was, we're going to have somebody other than Ollie just grab a hold of this game. And that's exactly what Leon Johnson III was able to do. And there's a couple times where Leon Johnson and Rashad Owens both came back to the ball to make big time catches. If they set right there in their spot and they wait on the ball to be delivered for them, those are two more opportunities where the defense could potentially get a pick there. So Leon and Rashad only had like 3 catches for 51 yards. Leon Johnson obviously had 9 catches, 132 yards. Brennan Presley, 9 catches, 90 yards, a quiet 90 yards. And if you want to talk about stats, right, coming into this thing, we talked about from a statistical perspective, this shouldn't even be a game. BYU was so far down most of the stat categories in the Big 12 that they shouldn't even have been a 5-win squad. But they found ways to get nitty and gritty, and we saw a little bit of that today. But again, statistically, they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. And then Alan Bowman, who I think most of us would agree had a pretty ugly game, still managed to throw up 321 yards. Now, as a couple of people have already said, yeah, if we give Texas this big of a lead, okay, it's fair. We can talk about Texas now. I'll be honest. I picked Texas to be in the Big 12 title game before the year. I also made comments that it wasn't necessarily a horrendous thing that we didn't face Texas during the season. But now we have nothing to lose. Nobody is going to have us beating them. Nobody's going to have us even being in the daggone football game, especially with a depleted Ollie Gordon. But that's the beauty of it. We have a few games this year where we started hot. We started the game, the script went well, and even today, I mean, those first drives, don't like settling for field goals necessarily, but it looked like you were going to be able to take control of the game from a very, very, very early onset. Attitude is should be good. Oh yeah, at Texas. So I watched the Tech game. That's the best I have seen Texas play the game of football since Mac Brown was here. They looked ridiculously outmanned against Texas Tech. And even their second group, when they put their second group in the second half, they were still dominating Texas Tech's first stringers. Like the backup defensive line for Texas was demolishing the starting offensive line for Texas Tech. Now, I know Taco Reckham Tech isn't the end-all, be-all to success this season, but we also know that Baron Morton's a pretty good quarterback. The Big 12 is pretty crazy, so there could have been some more opportunities. But at the end of the day, we're going to have an opportunity to chop down that tree. And it's perfect for us. We're never good as the team being hunted. I mean, that's evidentiary by today. Like BYU had a mission, and they came in with an objective. They tried to accomplish that, and via the game plan, they actually did a really good job. But again, like we've had conversations about the players-only meetings, both before and after Iowa State. And those really, set the bar. SEC. Yes, thank you. Well, that's the crazy part, I think, about the Big 12 for the newbies in the conference is outside of OU and Texas, the Big 12 has always been pretty camaraderie, driven. Right? I think all of us, traditionally speaking, cheer on the other one. Like I remember the Final Four runs for Texas Tech and Baylor and KU. I think all of us were hardcore Big 12 fans above anything else in those times. I think this is going to be pretty much the same. And the best part about it is it's all of the Big 12, right? That's going to be rocking orange or cheering on Oklahoma State because it's Darth Vader. It's the arch nemesis. It's Texas. Not only the team that caused all the crap fest that sent the latest, or not the latest, but the first major shift in the new realignment, right? Texas did that. Texas is the reason that Texas A&M, Missouri, Nebraska, and Colorado left the Big 12 originally. Texas has always been the storyline. Texas will always be the storyline. So if you beat them in Arlington in their own backyard when they're the storyline all year, and they're going to be the storyline all week because this is going to be their big crescendo moment as they get ready for the SEC. Everybody in Big 12 country should be a Cowboy fan because Texas is like the epitome of what's bad about the Big 12 and why the Big 12 is even in the position they are. But I'm somewhat thankful, right? It's right after Turkey Day. We can still be a little bit thankful. I'm kind of thankful of Texas. I don't know about you. I prefer the new look Big 12. I really do. Like, even if OU and Texas were still on the table, and then you were to tell me that we were going to get Utah and Arizona State and BYU and Colorado, I would say, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So with or without OU and Texas, okay, this conference is still going to continue to do great things. And now we get to hear all week about how great Texas is and how Texas is back and how they've got all these NFL players finally for the first time in a long time. And you've got this pedestrian Oklahoma State that got beat up by South Alabama, that got absolutely curb stomped and kicked around by UCF, that should have lost to BYU, that did lose to Iowa State, that Cowboy team that rotated 733,000 people for the first part of the season, that didn't have any semblance of an offense, that had no clue what they were doing defensively. That same Cowboy team is the one that's going to get to play Texas. And we literally have nothing to lose. Kalani Sitake, BYU's head coach, had a really good plan for Oklahoma State. And the plan basically was, screw it. Like, we're going to go for it. We're going to do some fakes. We're going to go for some fourth and downs. And I hope that we adopt that same mentality for Texas. Like, whatever fun stuff you got up your sleeve, Gundy, bring it on. Yeah. Correct. All right. Yeah, we'll mess with some comments here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we know it's not the same Texas team. But, okay, so I've used the Waterboy reference, right? You know, whenever it comes to Mike Gundy in Bedlam, when he looks across the sideline and he sees the other coach in like a baby face or whatever, Mike Gundy does not have that problem with Texas for whatever reason, right? Every year, if we have a chance of winning a championship trophy, usually OU and Iowa State are going to get in the way. And Iowa State got in the way again this year. Iowa State got in the way in 2021. Iowa State got in the way in 2011. OU screwed us up in 2013. OU screwed us up in 2017, 2018. But now we get Texas. I'm aware that's not the same Texas team. But I'm also aware that we don't fear Texas. The bubble guppy feelings and the nervousness and apprehension before a Bedlam, you're not going to have that as much with Texas. We don't fear Texas. Gundy doesn't fear Texas. Yeah, they very well could choke, man. Because again, they're supposed to be back. They're going to be showered with flowers all week. And again, this is the Oklahoma State team that lost to South Alabama, that got destroyed by UCF. that should have lost to BYU. There's no way that Oklahoma State team beats Texas. There's just not. Texas has been solid. They've been, nothing short of amazing at times this season. But they've also had a lot of close games. That's what I think people are going to overlook that a little bit. They've got several games this year where they won by 3, 4, 6, 7, right? It's not like Texas has been absolutely manhandling everybody. Oh, you know what? That's a good one, Steven. That's part of segment 3. You know what? I'll just get into it real quick. It's not all sunshine and roses. I ride on Baylor for their fans being horrendous. I ride on Houston because their fan base is pretty terrible about filling up the stadium. I don't give 13 hoots what the weather was like. Gundy talked about this in postgame, right? He said that the fans that stayed around for overtime were insanely loud. But if you want to be a blue blood someday, or you at least want to be the beginning of the footprint of a blue blood someday, these games matter. Gundy mentioned it in the postgame. When you watch the Big Ten games, right, the Big Ten games that are to go to a championship, like a Michigan, Ohio State, or I don't know, there's other times like Michigan State a couple years ago. Those fans, they do sit through the whole thing, whether it's 21 degrees, 23 degrees, 12 degrees, raining, snowing. I know we're not used to all that, but I'll admit that was not a good look. And I'm really, really glad that Gundy called out the fan base a little bit in the postgame, because he is right. For whatever reason, I know they're used to the inclement weather, but they don't leave. I mean, even your Wisconsin's, Oklahoma State and Wisconsin are almost identical as far as number of wins and success and bowl games and, for the most part, recruiting over the last decade. But Wisconsin fans, they stick through it even when it's 10, 20, 30 degrees, even when their team's getting beat up a little bit. So, yeah, I was pretty disappointed with that as well, Steven. I'll be 100% honest with you. I mean, I don't know. I'm different. I've never, ever one time in my life left a game early, whether we were up by 70 or down by 70. That's just how I was raised. It's how I was wired. I wouldn't even think to leave a game early. Like that wouldn't even when I was a little bitty kid, it never even crossed my mind to leave a game early. It was never a conversation. I never even asked my dad, "Hey Dad, why do we stay till like the cleaning people?" And we did this in every sport: football, basketball, baseball. You know what I mean? My dad I'd walk around and get some of those plastic cups. And we would get a little collection of the different years, different designs. But yeah, I didn't like that. That was kind of embarrassing. But that was the only downside of the day, was the crowd and how it was not a good look. And I wish that our fan base did view things a little bit more wholeheartedly, like some of the Big Ten people. But we got to get there. And again, like I said in the very beginning, this is a redefining type of win, because these are the games that we typically found ways to lose. Like I was getting text all week. Wouldn't it be so O-State to lose this game when all you got to do is win and you're in? And then right before halftime, I know we all had the same feelings of, oh man, this is the life of an O-State fan, is it not? So that comeback, that's not something that we've always been accustomed to. We have found ways to lose more of these big-time games that get us to Big 12 championship than we've even come close to find ways to win. And unfortunately, you do have to learn to win. And last year was a big setback. So the regalvanization and then we can get back to what we've been talking about all season, and that is capitalization. We're pretty much playing with house money. All right. We can say that. I think all of us would agree that even making it to the Big 12 title game is a pretty big deal, because the pulse on this team, this locker room, this coaching staff, early on in the season was not great. But just like this isn't the same Texas team that we've all been used to, okay? This is also a Texas team now that has to handle all of the positive publicity. They have to handle about how they could be a Final Four team, and they're back, and this is the best team since the Mac Brown years, and Steve Sarkisian is a guru, and they're going to be able to recruit top 2, top 3 all day, every day, 24/7. That's all we're going to hear all week. And that's all they're going to hear too. And let's face it, guys, their players are going to hear over and over, O-State is easy. You guys got this one. K-State would have been harder. OU would have been harder. That's what Texas fans think. They firmly think that. So that's why we're going to have a shot, because of the locker room and the complete buy-in from everybody all the way around. And the fact that Texas doesn't handle, or they haven't had the opportunities to handle all of this positivity. This is positive publicity for Texas. That's something that could backfire. They're going to get all the roses, all the attention, all the publicity, all the love, all the admiration, all the sport, all the talk, all the SEC, and how great it would be for the SEC to get a Big 12 win on their way out. That's all they're going to hear. And I don't think that they're equipped to handle it. They might be. Talent-wise, they are they're good, right? Their best 22 dudes are better than our best 22 dudes. One-on-one. But that's the beauty of this game. It's not on one-on-one. Right? Momentum does matter. The culture does matter. We know how to, fight through these type of adverse situations. Texas this season hasn't really been put in a whole lot of precarious spots. And again, I do think that all of the lights and the glitz and the glamour of Texas being back in the Big 12 title game and back to being ready to leave the conference, it could back them in a corner. And if that happens, and we come out swinging, I'll put it to you this way. All right, Steven. I don't know what you doubt, but if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, I would bet my money on us for sure. Over Texas in a tight game in the fourth quarter, nah. We'll see, Steven. We shall see. I'm excited. Hey, and everybody that listen to my ugly mug yell, hammer the over. We did it. We made it. We arrived. We're all okay. And we all made more money because of it. All right. So my hammer the over crowd, we did it. All righty, y'all. Now, Steven, you better be rooting for the Cowboys. How dare you root for? You can't root for Texas. That should be illegal, even though they're your SEC thief in the night mistresses. But anyways, all righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one. We're so fired up, we might do another one tomorrow. I don't know. But, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Later, taters.